You know that uneasy feeling when someone you trust starts acting all strange and you catch that subtle shift from friendly banter to something way more competitive? Well, that's exactly where things with Jake and me took a nosedive. We've been best friends since freshman year, practically joined at the hip, sharing everything from late night ramen to cramming for finals in the library. But then, out of nowhere, Jake started competing against me in everything. And I don't just mean the usual who can stay up later challenge. No, this was serious. He was eyeing my territory, my projects, my ideas like some kind of friendly battlefield gone wrong. It wasn't always obvious at first. Honestly, I thought he was joking. You know those moments when a friend ribs you a bit too hard? Like when he'd mock my art aesthetic during a study session or aggressively challenge me to join the same clubs? I brushed it off. It was just Jake being Jake, or so I thought. But then came the art exhibition. Picture this. I'd spent weeks preparing this gallery, showing with all my best pieces, nervously hoping Professor Martin would like them. I was proud, but also terrified that the turnout would be a flop. Suddenly, Jake shows up uninvited, not just showing up, but get this. He's chatting with the crowd like he's the artist behind the whole thing, pointing at pieces, talking about our shared vision with such confidence that some people actually believed he was involved from the start. I mean, it was my idea, my blood, sweat, and paint on those canvases. I caught his smirk at one point like he was daring me to say something. But what could I do? Call him out in front of everyone? It felt like this was the moment the line between friendship and rivalry blurred real fast, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if Jake even cared about that line anymore. How does a friendship turn into a rivalry without warning? One moment you're cracking jokes and swapping dreams, the next your best friend is your biggest challenger. That's where I found myself standing in the middle of what should have been a celebration, trying to figure out when Jake stopped being my ally and started trying to outshine me at every turn. Jake and I were inseparable, from that first awkward week of freshman orientation to every late-night cram session and lazy Sunday hangout. We'd built this rhythm like two halves of a whole, always bouncing ideas off each other, sharing laughs about ridiculous professors, and dreaming about the futures we'd somehow conquer together. College life tossed plenty of curveballs, but Jake was my constant, the guy who'd always back me up even when I painted a canvas that looked more like spilled spaghetti than art. I guess part of what made the friendship so easy was how naturally our lives intertwined. We ended up in the same classes because, well, we both had a knack, or so I thought, for picking interesting ones. We joined the same clubs too, the art society, the film group, and even some of those random workshops about entrepreneurship that neither of us really cared about but tagged along for the snacks and side conversations. It was like our little world was this bubble where we moved in sync. But then, somewhere along the line, that sync started to flip. I can't even remember the exact moment it began, but suddenly Jake wasn't just my sidekick anymore, he was a competitor, and that caught me off guard. Like, in class, he'd sit a little straighter, raise his hand a little faster than before. When it came to group projects, he'd push to take the lead even if we had split it fine before. The vibe was different. Keyword. Our art club meetings started feeling less like a hangout and more like a showdown. I'd sketch an idea and mention it casually, and Jake would jump in with a, "Oh, hey, I was thinking about something like that too." But it wasn't the friendly overlap I was used to. It felt like he was marking territory, planting a flag wherever I went. Not in a joking way, genuine competition. That was when Emma stepped in. Emma was this mutual friend who somehow balanced out our extremes. She noticed the shift before I fully did and wasn't shy about calling it out. One afternoon, after another awkward exchange in the art studio where Jake subtly undercut one of my ideas in front of the professor, Emma cornered me by the lockers. "You've seen it, right?" she said, voice low but serious. "Jake's acting off, like he's trying to beat you at everything. Not just in class, but with your friends, your projects. It's weird. You're supposed to be his best friend, but I don't know, man. I'm worried." I shrugged, not wanting to admit how much it stung. Maybe he's just pushing himself hard? College is stressful. Emma leaned in, eyes sharp. "It's more than stress. He's changed, and I think he's making this personal." Now that hit me. Personal? How does something that's supposed to be friendship suddenly get that messy? I started paying attention. Jake started showing up uninvited to events I was involved in. He'd join clubs I was passionate about, sometimes outfueling me, other times just lurking, waiting to pounce with a comment or a critique that felt oddly pointed. There was this one night, this group hangout at our usual cafe downtown, the one with the mismatched chairs and questionable espresso, where Jake, for the first time, openly challenged me. We were talking about a contest for a community mural project. I mentioned I was thinking of throwing my hat in. Jake laughed. Not the light teasing kind, but a sharp, almost dismissive chuckle. "You really think you've got a shot?" he said, eyes gleaming in that way that made me uneasy. I laughed it off, but Emma caught the look I gave him, and after Jake left to take a call, her expression said it all. This wasn't just about art anymore. This was war. The rivalry was seeping into every corner of my life, and the worst part? It wasn't just about winning or losing on campus anymore. Something had changed between us, and it felt like Jake was out to prove something not just to me, but maybe even to himself. I was stuck trying to figure out where the friend ended and where the rival began, because now, that line was disappearing fast, and honestly, I wasn't sure I even wanted to find it anymore. The day of the midterm project presentation was supposed to be straightforward. I'd worked on this art critique paper and a small display to go with it, really poured myself into it over the past few weeks. I remember sitting in the classroom quietly prepping when I noticed Jake pacing near the door, and honestly, that was the first warning bell. He usually didn't seem that jittery before presentations. When my turn came, I pulled up my display, ready to talk about the abstract influences that shaped my piece. And then, right as I started, the projector flickered and blinked out. Just like that, the screen went black. I fumbled with the remote, whispering curses under my breath. The professor's eyes narrowed, probably thinking I was just unprepared. And yeah, it was embarrassing. But here's the thing. When the tech guy rushed in to fix it, he mentioned Jake had been near the equipment right before class, just messing around, he said. I caught Jake's eyes from the corner. His jaw was tight, but he didn't say a word. After class, I found Jake leaning against the lockers, his usual smirk replaced by something harder. I confronted him. "Did you mess with the projector?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jake shrugged, looking almost amused. Would I stoop to that? I'm here to win, not to cheat. I blinked. That sounded like a denial, but with a wink. Mixed signals for sure. Was it a joke or a challenge? Maybe both. I wanted to believe he hadn't done it, but the timing was too damn perfect. Emma, who was hanging by the door, caught my eye after the exchange. Later, she pulled me aside, voice lowered like she was sharing classified info. Look, I don't know what Jake's playing at, but this rivalry isn't just about beating you in class. It's personal. You can't ignore it. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say, we're friends, he wouldn't sabotage me. But Emma's concern was sinking in. This wasn't the playful competition from the past, it was something else, something darker. That weekend, Emma tried to mediate. She invited both of us to that old coffee spot we'd all frequented since freshman year, the one with the 2 bright walls and endless indie playlist. The 3 of us sat awkwardly, the energy thick between Jake and me. Emma was doing her best peacemaker, suggesting we talk things through like the friends we used to be. Jake's jaw clenched as Emma spoke. Then, right as she finished, he broke the silence with this heavy sigh. You think I'm just some bitter loser trying to take him down? Fine. But maybe I'm not trying to get ahead of him. I'm trying to get ahead of me. Emma blinked. Then, I blinked. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Jake looked down, then back up, eyes sharper than ever. You don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm done playing second fiddle. If that makes me the bad guy, then so be it. Emma's hopeful smile faltered, and for the first time, I realized we weren't just caught in a competition, we were caught in a storm neither of us knew how to navigate. And then, things escalated. The rivalry spilled into every scene. Art club meetings turned icy, social events felt like battlegrounds, group assignments were arenas where tensions brewed under forced smiles and clipped words. There was that time when we got assigned to the same team for a community outreach project. Normally, working with Jake was easy, even fun. But this time, every suggestion I made got shot down quickly. He'd counter with his own idea, polished and convincing. I tried to push back, but each push was met with a calm but firm resistance that smelled less like cooperation and more like a contest for control. Emma kept trying to catch me after meetings, her face a mix of worry and frustration. Have you talked to him honestly? Like, really talked? I wanted to. I did. But whenever I tried, Jake's responses were a tangle of anger and vulnerability, accusations and confessions that left me reeling. Then, the bombshell landed. One rainy afternoon, as we left the art building together, awkwardly side by side, Jake stopped, turned to me with this serious look, and said something that changed everything. You think this is about me trying to steal your spotlight? It's not. You're not the only one who's been holding something back. I didn't tell you because I didn't want pity. But I've been fighting my own storm. My dad's been sick, and I've been trying to keep it together while pretending I don't care about anything but winning. I was stunned. The Cold War between us suddenly thawed a little, replaced by this raw honesty that neither of us had expected. For the first time, I saw Jake not just as a rival, but as a person struggling in ways I hadn't imagined. And in that moment, the rivalry felt less like a game and more like 2 damaged friends trying to outrun their own pain. But it was also a reminder, this wasn't going to just vanish with an apology or a truce. Our friendship and rivalry were tangled up in things way bigger than art or grades. And I didn't know yet which thread would unravel first. That bombshell Jake dropped hit me like a punch to the gut, and weirdly, it made everything else click into place. The sneaky sabotage, the undercutting in meetings, the cold shoulder at hangouts. It wasn't just about some petty competition to outshine me. It was about him fighting his own hidden battles while trying to prove, maybe mostly to himself, that he was still standing. I mean, who could blame him for lashing out when life was throwing punches harder than any college project? We stood there, soaked from the rain dripping off the building's eaves, words hanging heavy between us. For a minute, neither of us said anything. Somehow, the tension didn't vanish instantly. It didn't turn into a warm hug or some grand reconciliation. But the fact that Jake trusted me enough to share that, it was a crack in the armor we'd both been building. I guess I'd been so caught up in feeling betrayed that I never really thought about what Jake might be going through. I told Emma later that night and she nodded, saying something that stuck with me. Sometimes rivalry is just fear in disguise. Fear of failure, fear of being invisible. And for Jake, I could see now that fear was eating him alive. So, how did I handle all this fallout? Well, it wasn't a neat Hollywood ending where we magically patched everything up overnight. No, it was messier. I took a step back. Not from Jake entirely, but from the rivalry. I stopped meeting his challenges with fire and decided to lean into understanding instead. Not that I became some saint or anything, I'm a guy who likes competition after all. But I realized that some battles aren't about winning. Sometimes they're about holding on. We kept our distance for a bit, letting things cool down while I tried to be there for him in ways that didn't feel like gameplays or scoring points. I showed up at the hospital once or twice when he asked, quietly hanging out while he dealt with his dad's illness. That felt awkward at first, like crossing a boundary I hadn't noticed before, but it was real. It wasn't about art, or clubs, or grades anymore. It was about friendship surviving its own storm. Did we fix everything? Nah. We're still figuring out the new code for our friendship, patching the holes where rivalry left scars. There are moments when the old Jake sneaks back in, competitive and fierce. But now, there's something else layered beneath respect, empathy, maybe even a cautious hope. I guess what sticks with me is how fragile and complicated friendship can be. It's not always about laughter and easy days. Sometimes it's about confronting the parts that hurt, that challenge us, and finding a way through without losing ourselves or each other. And hey, if you ask me now how a friendship turns into a rivalry and maybe back again, I'd say it's not a one-way street. It's a winding path with no map, full of detours and unexpected stops. But sometimes, those rocky parts are what remind us why the journey mattered in the first place,